Welcome to our channel. Before we dive into yet another fascinating mythy, would like to invite you to watch, to like, and subscribe to the channel. Also activate the notification sound. Let's discuss about the rise and fall of King Solomon. Solomon was the greatest king Israel had ever seen, had wisdom beyond human understanding, had power, wealth, and a kingdom that stretched across distant lands, but in the end, he fell a king who had everything, a king who had the favor of God himself, Cam, one of the worst rulers Israel had ever known. How did it happen? Was it his power, his wealth, his insatiable hunger for women? Or was it something deeper, a weakness hidden within his heart from the very beginning? This is the story of Solomon, a king, chosen by God, a man, gifted with wisdom, a ruler, who built an empire. The man who lost everything. Stay with me as we uncover the rise and fall of the greatest king of Israel. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. Let's begin. In the great city of Jerusalem, a child was born. His name was Solomon, a name that meant peace. His father was King David, the mighty warrior who defeated Goliath. His mother was Bathsheba, a woman whose beauty had driven David to sin. Solomon was born from an affair. David had taken Bathsheba as his own, while her husband Uriah was away at war to cover his sin. David arranged for Uriah to be killed in battle, and, though he thought no one would know, God saw everything. The prophet Nathan confronted David, and David repented, but the price was heavy. Their first child died as punishment, yet God is merciful. From that same union, another son was born, Solomon, a sign of peace between God and David, promise that God had not abandoned his people. Solomon grew up in the palace, surrounded by wealth and power, but his path to the throne was not easy. David had many sons, and one of them, Adonijah, was next in lineage. Adonijah was strong, ambitious, and already calling himself king, but behind the scenes, Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan had other plans. They went to David and reminded him of God's will. Solomon was to be king, and so David made his final decision with his last breath. He named Solomon as his rightful heir, but Solomon knew one thing: a throne is never secure while enemies remain. So he dealt with Adonijah's older brother, who had tried to steal the throne. Solomon had him executed. He turned to Joab, David's military commander. Joab had supported Adonijah, so Joab was killed 2-1. Solomon removed every threat to his kingdom until he was the only one left standing. And so, at just 15 years old, Solomon became king. Was young, inexperienced with the responsibility of ruling an entire nation. But then, something incredible happened. On night, Solomon had a dream, and in that dream, God appeared before him. Ask for whatever you want, God said. Solomon could have asked for anything: power, wealth, death of his enemies, but instead, he asked for with heart that could discern right from wrong, and God was pleased, because you have asked for wisdom and not riches or long life. I will give you both, God said. You will be the wisest king who ever lived, and you will have wealth and honor beyond any before you. And just like that, Solomon became the wisest man in history. His wisdom was tested almost immediately. 2 women came before him. Both claimed to be the mother of the same child. Both had their own story, but only one was telling the truths. Lon, listen, death. He called for a sword, cut the child in 2. He ordered, give half to one woman, and half to the other. The room fell silent, and one woman cried out, no, let her have the child, but do not kill him. And Solomon knew only a true mother would rather give up her child than see him die. It child was given to the rightful mother, and Solomon's wisdom became legendary. Word of his brilliance spread far and wide. Kings and queens traveled from distant lands to seek his counsel, wrote proverbs filled with wisdom, studied the stars, the animals, the plants. She built alliances with powerful nations, and under his rule, Israel flourished. Gold and silver flowed into Jerusalem. The kingdom expanded its trade. Solomon built great palace, and then he built something greater, the temple of God, place of worship unlike any other house for the Ark of the Covenant. Years of labor, thousands of workers, gold-covered walls, massive pillars, a holy sanctuary. And when it was finished, Solomon stood before his people. He lifted his hands to the sky, and he prayed, O Lord, God of Israel, There is no God like you in heaven or on earth. Let your eyes be open to this place day and night. And when your people pray, hear them from heaven and forgive their sins. And God heard a cloud filled the temple, glory of the Lord rested upon it. Solomon had everything wisdom, twiled powerful kingdom and the presence of God, but then something changed, began to want more, wealth more, power more, women, and so he took wives, not just a few, 700 wives and 300 concubines and 1,000 women from different nations, princes, from Egypt, women, from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon. With each marriage, Solomon secured an alliance. With each alliance, he gained more power, but with each woman brought their gods into Israel. Solomon's palace became a web of political intrigue, was harem, a maze of different cultures and beliefs, and slowly faith of Israel was challenged. Elam built altars to foreign gods, allowed idol worship in the land. Same king who built the temple of God built temples for false gods, and God saw everything. The Lord appeared to Solomon again, and this time he was not pleased. You have turned away from me, God said. You have worshipped other gods. Because of this, I will tear the kingdom from your hands. But for the sake of your father David, I will not do it in your lifetime. When you die, your kingdom will be divided. Solomon had been warned, but he did not change. His kingdom grew weaker. Enemies rose against him. His wealth became a burden. His wisdom became clouded, and when he died, the kingdom of Israel broke apart. A kingdom once united, now divided forever. The greatest king had become the greatest failure. A man who had everything and lost it all. What can we learn from Solomon? Wisdom is not in a wealth, is not in power, is not in a without obedience to God of everything. Willful Solomon's story is a warning, a lesson that no matter how high we rise, we turn away from God will fillet us. Learn from his mistakes. Choose the path of righteousness. Base in the intently one thing matters, faithfulness to God. Solomon was the greatest king of Israel, a ruler like no other, blessed by God with wisdom beyond human understanding, wealth that surpassed all kings before him, power that stretched across distant lands, and yet, despite having everything, he fell a king who was chosen by God himself. Ficum, one of the greatest disappointments in Israel's history. How did it happen? Was it his power, his wealth, his unquenchable hunger for women? Or was there something hidden deep within his heart from the very beginning? Something even wisdom could not save him from? This is the story of Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, and the king who lost everything. Stay with me as we uncover the rise and fall of Israel's greatest king, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. Let's begin. Solomon was born into a kingdom of power. His father was King David, the greatest warrior Israel had ever known, man who defeated Goliath with a single stone, ruler who built Israel into a mighty nation. But Solomon's birth was surrounded by scandalous mother. Bathsheba had been another man's wife. Uriah, the Hittite, loyal soldier in David's army. David saw Bathsheba bathing from his palace rooftop, and desire consumed him, took her, became pregnant, and, to cover his sin, David arranged for Uriah's death in battle, was murdered. God saw everything. The prophet Nathan came to David with a message from the Lord. David had sinned. His actions would not go unpunished. Child born from his affair would die, and he did. Even in judgment, God showed mercy. David repented, and from his sorrow, a new child was born, Solomon, a name that meant Paseah, sign that God had not abandoned him, promise that the throne of Israel would continue. Solomon grew up, surrounded by power, wisdom, and the weight of expectation. His father was a warrior, a man of blood, but Solomon was different. He was not a soldier, was a thinker, seeker of knowledge, and from a young age, he was drawn to wisdom. But there was a problem. David had many sons, and the throne did not belong to Solomon. Adonijah, David's older son, was the rightful heir. Strong ambitions, already declaring himself king, but behind the scenes, a plan was unfolding. The prophet Nathan and Bathsheba knew that God had chosen Solomon, and they would not let Adonijah take the throne. They went to David. They reminded him of the Lord's promise, and in his final moments, David made his choice. Would be king. Decision was matter, but Solomon knew one thing: a throne is never secure while enemies remain. So he He dealt with Adonijah's older brother who had already tried to seize power. Solomon had him executed then. He turned to Joab, David's military commander, a man who had shed much blood and stood against Solomon's rule. Joab was killed by one. Solomon removed every threat to his kingdom until he was the only one left standing at just 15 years old. Solomon sat on the throne of Israel Janzen, with the responsibility of ruling a nation, and then something extraordinary happened on night. Solomon had a dream, and in that dream, God appeared before him. Ask for whatever you want. The Lord said Solomon could have asked for anything, power, wealth, destruction of his enemies, but instead, he asked for wisdom, a heart that could discern right from wrong, and God was pleased. Because you have asked for wisdom and not riches or long life, I will give you both. God said, you will be the wisest king who ever lived, and you will have wealth and honor beyond any before you. And when Solomon awoke, everything changed. His wisdom became legendary. It was tested almost immediately. Two women came before him, claimed to be the mother of the same child. Both had their own story. Both only one was telling the truths. Solomon listened. Then he called for a sword, cut the child in two. He ordered, give half to one woman and half to the other. The room fell silent. Then one woman cried out, no, let her have the child, but do not kill him. And Solomon knew inly, a true mother would rather give up her child than see him die. It child was given to the rightful mother, and Solomon's wisdom became known throughout the land. People traveled from distant kingdoms to seek his counsel, wrote thousands of proverbs, studied nature, the stars, the seasons, knew the ways of kings and the ways of common men, formed alliances with powerful nations, and under his rule, Israel flourished. Gold and silver filled the streets of Jerusalem. Trade routes stretched across distant lands, and then Solomon built something greater, Temple of God, a house for the Ark of the Covenants. Ivan. Years of labor, thousands of workers, whiles covered in gold, massive pillars, holy sanctuary. And when it was finished, Solomon stood before his people. He lifted his hands to the sky and he prayed, O Lord, God of Israel, there is no God like you, in heaven or on earth. Let your eyes be open to this place, day and night, and when your people pray, hear them from heaven, and forgive their sins. And God heard. A cloud filled the temple. Presence of the Lord rested upon it. Solomon had everything, was dwelt powerful kingdom and the favor of God. But then something changed, began to want more women, and so he took wives, even 100 wives and 300 concubines and 1,000 women, from different nations, princes, from Egypt, women, from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon. With each marriage, Solomon secured an alliance. With each alliance, he gained more power, but with each woman brought their gods into Israel. His palace became a web of political intrigues, harem, a maze of different cultures and beliefs, and slow life faith of Israel was Valadelim. Built altars to foreign gods, allowed idol worship in the land. Same king who built the temple of God built temples for false gods, and God saw everything. You have turned away from me, God said. Because of this, I will tear the kingdom from your hands. When you die, your kingdom will be divided. Solomon had been warned, but he did not change. His kingdom grew wicked. Enemies rose against him. His wisdom became clouded, and when he deeded, the kingdom of Israel broke apart. A man who had everything lost it. What can we learn from Solomon? Wisdom is not inner wealth, is not inner power, is not inner without obedience to God of everything. Well, for Solomon's story is a warning. No matter how high we rise, if we turn away from God, will fillet us. Learn from his mistakes, because in the end, one thing matters: faithfulness to God. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Here are many more stories like this to uncover, and I'll see you in the next one.